John Cena could very well be the best WWE superstar of all time. Seriously, if you go through all the important metrics, that guy just smashed it and he's still going. It's an amazing thing to see. His retirement tour is also going to be part wonderful and part bittersweet. And as his career has been so loaded, let us take a trip down memory lane to enjoy some of the more mad bits and maybe some that we can now forget about. Sound good? Alright, I'm Simon Miller. Number 10, the FU. And the 5-knuckle shuffle, I suppose. I mean, that one still gets said. It's quite amazing because, they are referring to that thing that you do when no one's looking and you don't speak of. Let's move on. Given that John Cena was the guy who helped usher in the PG era, though, we did have to change his finishing move because it was literally called the FU. Now, it didn't stand for Fred or fence or fudge. Was that other word. It made sense at the time because when Cena exploded, he was the edgy rapper, but as soon as that was gone, he still had the old phrases. Even the "you can't see me" was from that gimmick. That one was fine, though. Doesn't actually mean anything. The other time was the fact it was mocking Brock Lesnar's F5. I don't think anybody remembers that now anyway. This is why it was changed to the attitude adjustment, however, which I guess ties in. That's what we were doing from top to bottom. Number 9, his world title collection. So this is likely going to change soon. I have a feeling part of Cena's retirement tour will be winning that elusive 17th world title. This, of course, would break Ric Flair's long-standing record, and I know it's actually been more than that. Let's just stick with WWE stats for now. It makes things way easier. This is why we did go all quiet about the Nature Boy, as John was also on 16. Because they were tied, and because Cena is WWE through and through, everyone thought that was just the better story. Now that there is a chance it's going to shake things up, though, it's probably going to come back to the forefront. But you just gotta forget about all the other madness too. If anybody does deserve this accolade as well, it is John. Look what he gave to the company. If we can allow him to leave with a massive trinket like that, it is not the worst idea in the world, and the moment itself would be quite lovely. Number 8, the strange non-endings. Sometimes, John Cena just says things. It's part of his charm, to be honest, and I would imagine on occasion he was fighting crazy backstage plans too. Or lack thereof. He probably had no idea what was next. That's why on that one episode of Raw after Extreme Rules in 2012, he hinted that he may not be around for a while. And then he was. He didn't miss a show. He sort of did the same thing at Money in the Bank 2023, where there was the huge hint that London could get a WrestleMania, and then that was just dropped. I mean, it really did go nowhere, not even a peep since, and even Triple H ran that back in the post-show press conference. He didn't want us to get our hopes up. I think it is just part of the fun of John Cena, because he's such a big star, he can do whatever he wants, and you're damn right. As for those Mania teases, though, you can forget that. He didn't say it. Unless England drops some serious cash, you are not getting it. And trust me, I live in the UK. Cancel those brains now. Number 7, Poopy. You know it was coming. I can't imagine it was his idea, and if your boss tells you to do it, you do it. You can't call your own shots. But sometimes WWE felt like John should overly appeal to kids, so would write things like Poopy on JBL's limo. You heard that right too. To try and get under his opponent's skin, he wrote the most childish insult on a window. Definitely part of why we got the "Let's Go Cena, Cena Sucks" chance, because you never knew what version you were going to get. Sort of worked, I suppose. It made him this incredible figure that did go for more than 20 years on top. Well, let's face it, that's amazing. The fact he was able to ride through this too is just yet more love for the man, but I don't think this is going to be included in any highlight package anytime soon. Number 6 is WrestleMania record. WrestleMania 41 will be Cena's last ever match at the show of shows. That is one hell of a big deal. Therefore, I imagine one of the 3 things will happen. Number 1, he wins the world title to beat the record, as we build that up huge for someone to defeat him later in the year. Number 2, he loses a world title match to undermine that his time has gone, and it's a younger generation's game. Or number 3, we ignore the title and have a grudge match with somebody like Bron Breakker, and properly give that guy the rub. All have worth and would sort of stick to what John has done at WrestleMania, because despite his apparent dominance, look at this. His record is 10 wins and 6 losses. I mean, that ain't great. Also makes you rethink some of the narrative around the man, and look, I love what we did with that Austin Theory match, but it's fair to say it didn't really work out as intended. Theory never really got that super push out the other side. So as long as we can avoid that again, it'll be a happy time all around. And a sad one too. John Cena's final ever WrestleMania. All things considered, the whole show should be built around him. Number 5, the Lightning Fist. I don't really get what this was. Maybe I wasn't supposed to. It ties into one of Cena's last sort of full-time yet part-time runs, when for some reason he decided his new finish was the lightning fist. That's right, it was just a punch too. Don't overthink it. It lacked any real impact as well, which meant matches ended in the most bizarre of ways, and the rumor around it was always to try and help WWE grow in Asian markets. I can't believe that's true. It almost sounds offensive. I don't think John ever really took it seriously either, which is fine. One of his many positives was how lighthearted he could be. I don't think this was it. And hey, look, I am all for trying new things. It is the lifeblood of wrestling, but I would guess there's a reason he doesn't do it anymore. He is no fool. Number 4, the Nexus. Here we go. I mean, even other wrestlers agree with this one. Because if you do find some random interviews, you will find the likes of Chris Jericho and Edge all saying that, yep, the Nexus should have won at SummerSlam 2010. They are correct. Wade Barrett agrees for obvious reasons because it was all there. Cena wouldn't have been affected at all by losing, whereas this group of renegades were kicking ass. And no, not all of them would have benefited, but as soon as they lost at the first hurdle, all their threat was gone. We all felt silly for thinking we should be worried in the first place. It's a huge reminder why WWE today is better, because I don't think it would happen. All this work and then nope. We're over and done in a few months. It was so utterly ridiculous. I've no idea who made the call, but it was the incorrect choice. A proper mistake, especially when you look back now, but hey, it's not the first time. Very sadly, it's not going to be the last. Number 3, destroying Roman Reigns. Ultimately, this was for the best. Can't imagine Roman took this lightly and probably went away and learned from it. He is a smart dude. Still, in 2017, before their big match at No Mercy, my gosh, Cena dropped the ultimate fine speech on Reigns when he tore him apart for not being able to cut a promo and told him without one he's screwed. It's like watching a fan from Reddit getting mic time. Roman looked totally derailed by this, and while it made John look like a killer, it was everything WWE was doing wrong with the big dog. He couldn't respond properly even if he wanted to because his character was so lame. The irony of that is that we were trying to pitch him as the new John Cena, and yeah, given their roles in the company now, I don't think either would like to go back to this, even if it did help us at some point, because it was amazing to witness this on TV. It was also like watching a puppy being massacred. I don't need that again. Number 2, Bray Wyatt and Rusev. These are debatable, I'll give you that, and again, go look at Cena's Mania record. He did not steamroll everyone. But at various WrestleManias in close proximity to the other, we had potential big-time stars in Rusev and Bray Wyatt, who were on so much of a roll, they came across John Cena on the grandest stage. There's certainly a reason to say John winning was the right call, but you have to take into context the overall play, and yeah, both guys suffered because when push came to shove, they weren't allowed to do it. And I know they were heels at the time, but this wasn't the main event. It was a Nexus situation again. Them winning would have done way more than the other way around. I don't put this on Cena either, as if you do look at the overall booking, the powers that be clearly weren't ready to pull the trigger. Otherwise, they would have sorted this out after the fact. But today, yeah, at least one of them could have got the W, for science if nothing else, but instead we did absolutely nothing. Number 1, his feud with The Rock. I mean, not specifically, those 2 back-to-back matches did crazy business for WWE. Everybody involved, I imagine, is suitably proud. Cena has admitted this part, though, time and time again, because, yeah, when he made those comments about Dwayne Johnson choosing not to come back to the place he loves, even though he said he was desperate to, well, he was wrong and he should never have uttered them. John has said this was down to ignorance because when his in-ring career was slowing down and he made the jump to movies, he totally got it. Doesn't matter how much one stands wrestling, there is no way to appease all these bigwigs, so you have to pick and choose as best you can. As a fan, it was ace because seeing 2 of the biggest stars ever just tear into each other was something else. But I'm pretty sure John Cena and WWE are happy to leave this be now. I mean, it hasn't aged very well, and also everybody's just explained themselves. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go back and watch it. I tell ya, the fire in their eyes. All right then, all together. Da-da-da-do. There we go. It was kind of annoying. It's also the sign that we're going to talk about John Cena, so it's basically the bat signal, who these days has definitely entered that upper echelon of WWE superstars. He is officially all-time. I am Sam from WhatCulture. Please do subscribe. And here's 10 fascinating backstage facts about the man who cannot be seen. Number 10, the Money in the Bank 2023 promo wasn't the plan. So let's start super recent, because why not? And I will say, take this with a pinch of salt, even though it is out there. WWE does like to spin a web. But yeah, John Cena surprised the entire UK when he just randomly turned up at Money in the Bank, and it ruled. I know because I was there. Haven't popped like that for a while. He then went off about how WrestleMania should be in England, and he left us all stunned. We know this, but the powers that be have never even hinted at it. What the flub is going on? The twist is, during the post-press conference, Triple H came out and said this was not what he had expected Cena to say, and that maybe we should all calm down. Like an abusive relationship, this. Who are we meant to believe? The game even claimed this was a minor headache for the company because what were they meant to do? Well, I can clear that one up. Do Mania over here tomorrow. There you go. Now, if I were to guess, this was all part of the experience to test the waters, because look, do you think Vince McMahon doesn't want to take back whatever record AEW is about to break at Wembley? Exactly. Let's keep this going, though. It's really working out for fans this side of the pond. And I flippin' love it. Number 9, he asked Tommy Dreamer for permission. And what does that mean? I'll tell ya. To quote Tommy Dreamer on Busted Open Radio, he described his first meeting with Cena when he said he cared when he didn't have to. This was in relation to John finding the ECW legend backstage at a WWE event and asking him if it was okay if he started using a modified version of his finish. It was, of course, the AA. This is why everybody loves Mr. Cena. He is a very thoughtful dude. Tommy, since that day in 2002, has always thought it was super cool, because even if no requests were made, nobody was going to take Dreamer's side on that one, given at the time he was more of a backstage guy. The real icing on the cake is that nobody told Johnny to do this. He just found Tommy and sorted it out on his own. You gotta love him. Number 8, he had a word with a tryout wrestler. You know Mike Kanellis. He's had a run with WWE, is currently in Ring of Honor, and has carved quite a very nice career for himself. He may not have felt so spruce after his WWE tryout, though. Going down in 2007 when he took on Crime Time, I suppose Mike thought it would be fun to do a variation of the You Can't See Me taunt. Nope. Somebody told Cena, and he wasn't happy. Word travels fast as John was waiting at the curtain and told Kanellis in no uncertain terms, "You do not ever do this again." And I get that. Even though Cena was an established star at this point, it's always dog-eat-dog stuff. Everybody is protecting their spot. Because he is a good dude, Mike totally understood, apologized, and that was that. Water under the bridge, lesson learned. In fact, the now Mike Bennett is such a stand-up individual, he even respected the fact Cena came and told him straight up, rather than bury him to the office. That is how you should conduct business. It's another tick for John. Number 7, his rapper gig was meant to be a one and done. One day, because it was Halloween, WWE rallied up those they didn't consider to be top-tier talent and told them to dress up. Cena was going to be Vanilla Ice, which John was happy with. He could freestyle, so it'd be a nice opportunity to show a different side to himself. Have a guess how this goes. Creative was so impressed it sparked some ideas, one of which was to go and do that in front of the crowd. Within weeks, this was a thing. Everybody loved it. There's also that story that it all started when Stephanie McMahon saw him rapping on a bus during a European tour, but here is the point. Somebody instructed him to go and do it more, and it worked because he used it to become a legend. I mean, that's a pretty smart use of your time. Number 6, Cena gave feedback on 205 Live's commentary, which seems totally bizarre. We go to 2017 with this one when announcer Vic Joseph found John Cena backstage and said hello. Makes sense. He's a worthwhile friend to have. After inquiring on his role, Joseph told John he was a commentator for 205 Live, so Cena said he'd tune in and have a listen. Naturally, Vic thought he was just being nice, but no, the man actually watched the show, and that Cena gave him some real helpful pointers, which helped him evolve in his role. So once again, when people are super nice about John, this is why. It's just what he does. He goes out of his way. Number 5, he had accidental erections. Well, we were always going to get here one day. It was inevitable. Confirmed in 2009 when Cena was on the Andy Cohen's Watch What Happens show, he did tell the host that sometimes in the ring, he gets a boner. I mean, that's actually what he said. In fact, it got so out of control it became a backstage joke, and I suppose I get that. If you're about to hit a hip toss and notice a hard object in the groin area, you're going to ask about it. The real bizarreness is that it did take on a life of its own, so much so other wrestlers would gather by the monitor to see if it was going to happen. I don't know about you, but maybe you should just go and play cards or something. So the only thing we didn't get is Michael Cole on commentary informing the viewer about this, and I've thought about it, and I think that's likely for the best. Number 4, everybody thought he was going to fight R-Truth. And I don't mean in the ring either, because one day when R-Truth was coming back to the WWE, everybody else expected a big scrap between him and John Cena. What even is wrestling? It was all the buzz in 2008 because Ron Killings had recorded some diss tracks about John, and after Conan had sparked this off by saying they got into a fight at the airport, everybody thought we were going to get round 2. The problem being, They didn't even have a round one and it was made up. All that actually did happen was that John Cena was super professional, surprise, surprise. So when he saw Truth backstage, he asked if there was going to be an issues. R said they wouldn't be, so they shook hands, and that was that. I do believe this is how you do it. They also shared a hug, and as ever, the locker room was disappointed, because I swear, sometimes wrestling is full of grown children. Number 3, he openly called out Becky Lynch backstage. When Becky Lynch rightfully became SmackDown champion in 2016, there were still some questions about it. I do get this, but it wasn't Becky's fault. WWE just weren't using her as they should have been. For reference, go and look at the last few years. There you go. Her presentation was just paper thin, and as John saw this, he brought it up. Doing the classic veteran trick of finding her and asking, "Who are you?" It's a question even Steve Austin had back in the day. Who is Becky Lynch in the confines of sports entertainment? Thankfully, Becky got this and it lit a fire under her. Even more so because around the same time, she had had a similar chat with one Shawn Michaels. This is why after Lynch had found herself as the man, Cena was the first guy to say way to go, and hopefully all senior employees remember this. Don't have to destroy the younger guard. Just get in their heads a little bit. Number 2, he helped Cody Rhodes in AEW, because he's just a good man. It wasn't as direct as you think, but it all counts, and it came to light when Cody appeared on the Stone Cold Sessions last year. Happening after Rhodes shared the ring with Cena on a house show just before he left the company, he heard the 50-50 reactions John was getting from the fans, and noticed how he responded to it, or how he just accepted it, smiled, and used it to his advantage. Fast forward to Cody's last few months in AEW, and he was certainly experiencing something similar, but given what he had seen years prior, the American Nightmare tried to follow suit. So he applied these lessons and kept moving forward, and while I'm sure some people on the internet would disagree, I think you can see it when studying Cody's career at that point. There's something in his eyes. Given that he has now returned to WWE and basically wants to be John Cena, well, he's probably going to end up doing very well. Number 1, he paid fines for other WWE superstars. I mean, who is this guy? He's not real. Former WWE dude Aiden English told this story as he tweeted it out. But yeah, during a house show match in 2018, him, Rusev, Baron Corbin, AJ Styles, and the Usos all got fined because they were like, well, it's not on TV, let's have some fun. It sounds like they also got the ref involved to whoop some ass, which does sound quite amusing, but management didn't like the fact this hadn't been approved, so dished out fines that worked out to about $20,000 a wrestler. Sheesh. Apparently Cena also thought this was ridiculous, because let's face it, that is the idea of such events. Give the live crowd something different, so as you now know, he went and sorted the money himself. I mean, that's like $120,000. I mean, even if John just used his influence to get these cancelled, it's still quite the gesture, and another reason why everybody speaks so highly of him. He is simply the best.
John Cena as a heel is all I need in my life. It's one of the saddest things I'll ever say, but it's true. I've been waiting 25 years for this and I'm going to enjoy it. Because he was a good guy for so long, however, there are some moments when his babyface aura was sort of exposed. Suppose you could call it bad booking, but still, John has a lot to answer for. So I am Simon Miller, and do you need some examples? Bingo, let's go. Number 9, everything with AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler. At the end of 2012, John Cena was feuding with Dolph Ziggler and his then squeeze AJ Lee. She had portrayed Cena to join Dolph, and as we were at New Year's, they chose to celebrate this by laughing at John. Cannot do that on Raw or any wrestling show, so here he came. It started out pretty poor as Cena has taken his pain and decided to invest some serious time in Photoshop. He showcased some super immature images he'd made. This was how Vince McMahon saw his baby faces. Once he was done there though, Cena had his big reveal. As he thought Ziggler and Lee were full of it, he did indeed drop gallons of poo on their heads. That's right, that's what he did. Now really that makes him insane, because what? Also, where did this poop come from? Who helped him set up the machine? And why would you do this? It's most definitely illegal. It doesn't do much for the whole I'm a bigger and better person than you either. It's like Batman's no-kill rule. That's all well and good, but if Batman then rips out your heart and says, well, you're gonna die, and the justification is I just let your body do the work, well, that's nonsense. This wasn't good. Number 8, fine speech. I love a John Cena fine speech. I actively look forward to him saying those words because it means verbal death is coming. That dude can roast people. The funniest part is it usually comes after a superstar that Cena is feuding with has dug deep into their heart and delivered a very emotional promo. So right away, even saying fine speech is diminishing that. He may as well go, good try, little buddy. 9 times out of 10, John then does win the war of words because my gosh, he was the biggest star in the company company, so he had carte blanche to go off. It was often like watching a wounded puppy be put to sleep. It was just a massacre. Of course he would be so cutting, the babyface allure sort of faded away as he spoke what he deemed to be the truth, but look, he was superb at this. Sadly, some wrestlers did get caught in the firing line, and if you didn't like Cena, well yeah, I get it, he wrecked people. Was it always delivered in a superhero way though? No, I really think it comes down to John's longevity. Imagine he was never allowed to do this. His act, which did rub some people the wrong way anyway, would have been hit even harder after 15 or so years. The truth is, every now and then he needed this edge. Just a shame we never got to go all the way with it. Until today, obviously. That's why I can't wait. Number 7, egging on The Undertaker. I would say with quite some confidence that John Cena was meant to be the heel in this feud. It was 2018 and John had already started to segue away from wrestling, but he still fancied competing at WrestleMania 34. The Royal Rumble was an option, but that didn't work, and neither did the Elimination Chamber. What is a man to do? Well, that's easy, let's just call out The Undertaker. In that way, as the last time we saw the dead man was at WrestleMania 33 at a match with Roman Reigns that wasn't all that great. Cena sort of led into all of this, and when he got no reply, it made sense he was being mean. Rather than leave it there, John lead into this, calling the Phenom a coward and that he was letting his fans down. Let's remember for a second that Taker had said nothing about Cena. He just lost his mind one day. This was all about John too. He said it himself, how do I get to WrestleMania? I've got an idea. I will just be an asshole to this legend. Don't forget this match only went 3 minutes too. So I'll say it again, John Cena was not the babyface in this match. Number 6, destroying the referee. It is sort of different today as the world has changed, but there are some things the babyface does not do. Get overly familiar with the referee is one of them. If nothing else, you want to leave those tropes for the heels. It gives them easy ways to generate heat. This brings us to Live Champions 2012, where Cena and CM Punk were fighting. Punk had recently gone heel, and therefore John was extra mad, especially because they were in his hometown of Boston. Amazingly, Cena even hit a German suplex with a bridge, and man was he ever confident with that move. When he heard the 3 count, he thought he had done it. Mr. Burns had won it, new champion. Now yes, he was half right. There had been a pin, but the huge reason for this is because in his excitement, Cena had forgotten to take his shoulders off the mat. So sure, he had beaten Punk, but he'd also beaten himself too. That doesn't sound very good. The referee took the title away from John and gave it back to CM. Because it was a draw, it meant he doesn't get the championship. Now, rather than sort of shrug this off and accept a very fair ruling, Cena went totally mad. He got right in the official's face, complained his dad was watching from the front row, and basically said a draw was BS. Dude, I don't want to be that guy, but it was sort of your fault. Eventually, Punk just smashed him in the head with the title, and look, he shouldn't have done that. But somebody did have to quieten Cena down. Do not forget that this didn't help John at all. I mean, if anything, it just made him look like a sore loser. Number 5, the Nexus. You knew this one was coming. People still talk about it when going through John Cena's career. It was the summer of 2010, however, and the Nexus were awesome. They had debuted from NXT and just destroyed the main roster. They were so aggressive, Daniel Bryan got fired. That's a different story. Now, Cena winning at SummerSlam on the screen was fine. Nexus were meant to be terrible people, and Cena was fighting for the WWE. Him winning a match against all odds was WWE fodder too. The problem was, this was the wrong move. It means we are now sort of pulling the curtain back, and in that sense you have to bring Vince McMahon into the conversation. He's the one making the calls. When you do have the likes of Chris Jericho and Edge come out after the fact though and say, yeah, Nexus should have won at the pay-per-view too, well, something's going on. It wasn't structured very well either, as the Nexus had the numbers game towards the end of the match. And even then, Cena just whipped him 1, 2, 3. There's more to this as well, because the rumors have always suggested that Wade Barrett was picked as the winner, before Backstage politics got that changed. This really does need to be studied properly. Either way, it was an error, and as John Cena was involved on the wrong side, yeah, Nexus were never the same again either, and the speed to which they didn't matter anymore. We really did not need to do this. Number 4 versus The Rock. So this is the other side to what we just talked about. Because John Cena was John Cena, he sort of got to call his own shots here and there, and he made such a decision with The Rock feud, and my gosh, we may never get anything like this again. It all kicked off after The Rock returned to the WWE in 2011, because of course he was going to be crazy over. It's The Rock, and he was back. Cena at the time was also one of the most polarizing top guys ever, but that worked in his favor. Just meant wherever he went, you got all the noise, and actually, it was pretty damn great. John wasn't an idiot either and knew that if he was going to go toe-to-toe with the Great One on paper, he'd most likely be the heel. So throughout all of this, he just went off again, and my gosh, it was the most gripping TV for years. The story has always been The Rock knew nothing about the promo notes on your wristline either, which is super heel tactics, and it did lead to real-life heat between them, or so it is said. Really, all we got here was chaos and noise, which is why it was so great. But yes, let's just do it. If we are going to break it down, who was acting more like the heel? That guy's name was John Cena. Number 3, the duct tape. 2010's big feud was John Cena versus Batista, which made all the sense. They were the two biggest stars in the company. The Animal had won the WWE title at the Elimination Chamber in February before Cena won his gold back at WrestleMania 26. That just means we have to go one more round. Thankfully for Big Dave, it was Extreme Rules, so somebody booked a last man standing match, and yeah, they kicked the crap out of each other until both were like, man, nothing is working. Cena then decided he would go bonkers again and kind of go crazy with the rules, because as soon as he could, John duct taped Batista around reach of the ring post, meaning he was now stuck. So make sure you think about this. It wasn't that Batista could stand up, he wasn't knocked out. Cena had just made it quite literally impossible for the guy, and he even stood there and gloated while this happened. Dare I say it, John was very proud of himself. And yes, this was legal, he wasn't breaking the rules, but he came across like such a cheap coward. This is what a heel would do, and even Batista said that after the fact. It was a fun finish, don't get me wrong, it was very creative, but if we are going to get into the nitty-gritty, yeah, I don't think you would associate this with hustle, loyalty, and respect. Number 2, making out with Eve Torres. So this is the worst one. What the flub happened? It was doubly bad because Zack Ryder got caught up in it too, and yes, this is when Ryder had become an internet sensation, and fans demanded he got a proper push. That sort of went down as he befriended Cena and started dating Eve Torres. The issue was, John then started a program with Kane, and the Big Red Machine decided that he would kill Cena's friends. Zack got it so bad he ended up in a wheelchair. John was far more concerned with Eve, so saved her from this evil man's clutches. And do you know what Torres' reward was? Cena kissed her. And Ryder walked in. What sort of friendship was this? Just to make it worse, it was the day before Valentine's too, and given he may as well be dead, Kane then found Zack Ryder and threw him off the entranceway. This sucked. Even back then, people were flabbergasted because this made Cena such an asshole. Of course, now it was very likely from the warped mind of Vince McMahon, but either way, it was bad stuff. Number 1, poor Rey Mysterio. This was from the year before all of that, so I suppose in 2011, John Cena just went crazy. There's no way to spin this one. He tried to take advantage of mega babyface Rey Mysterio. It all came after the Money in the Bank pay-per-view where CM Punk had won the WWE title and then left the company. That wasn't going to work, we need a champion. Therefore on Raw we did a mini tournament and yeah, Rey won. People were genuinely happy because we love Mysterio, unless he enters into a Royal Rumble when we're expecting Daniel Bryan. As soon as Rey was backstage celebrating this though, Cena found him and yep, Triple H was here too, and he said later tonight, even though Mysterio had fought already, he now had to go one-on-one with John. And look, Cena sort of protested, but come on, not really. The real kicker was that John Cena defeated Rey Mysterio to become the WWE champion, but this wasn't a great moment. We forced Mysterio to pull double duty, and Cena happily went along with it. I do not think that's a good guy. Let's not pretend that John didn't have clout on screen either. He had punched Vince McMahon in the mouth at Money in the Bank, because that guy wanted a fair fight. This really is the time when fans were going to boo Cena regardless though. So why WWE did this, I do not know. They did not do themselves any favors.
A 17-time world champion, a legitimate Hollywood star, a life-changing Make-A-Wish hero, a surefire Hall of Famer, and a man of many memes. I'm Andy from WhatCulture Wrestling, and here are 25 things you didn't know about John Cena. Number 25. The Giant Pizza. It won't have escaped anybody's attention that John Cena has been a bloody tank for most of his life. Maintaining that muscle mass means consuming a lot of food. Ideally, a young John would have probably liked to feast on broccoli, chicken breast, and rice, but he couldn't afford to be picky after moving away from home to California in order to pursue his goals in the fitness industry. A young John was broke and didn't have much money for food, so imagine how wide his eyes got when he noticed that a local restaurant was running a pizza promotion. Basically, if you could stomach a ridiculously huge pie in one sitting, the eatery would give it to you for free. Cena made like Beard's Meat its food, beat the challenge, and kept returning for more. Eventually, the manager said, "Come on, John, you're eating me out of a business here. I will give you pizza for free if you would just stop hammering this damn challenge and putting me on the unemployment line." Suddenly, Cena had what he wanted, a place to go to grab some free food. So the moral of the story is that if you want free food, eat a dangerous amount of pizza. Armed with the dangerous knowledge that he physically wouldn't be able to pay for the food if he didn't finish it, Cena went to work and polished it off every single night he visited. And yet, when I choose to eat nothing but pizza for a week, I get called a slob. Where's the consistency? Number 24. He was bullied for polka dots. Every kid does something to prove they're cooler than their parents, and John Cena was no different. On Stephanie's Places for ESPN, he admitted he got into rap music purely to see how his mum and dad would react. If it annoyed them, even better. Classic teenage rebellion, but while at home he was showing off, at school he was fending off bullies. Apparently young John was getting grief for wearing, and these are his words, turquoise polka dots. What a crime. Who do you think he was, a knockoff Dusty Rhodes? Naturally, the other kids weren't having it, and the poor git was bullied around the block. Cena actually went through some pretty nasty treatment growing up, and that's what pushed him to start lifting weights. He just wanted to defend himself. Didn't exactly plan on becoming a global icon in the process. But once he started seeing results, the confidence kicked in, the bullies backed off, and the rest was history. Who'd have guessed that a questionable fashion choice would later lead to weightlifting, a fitness career, and eventually pro wrestling immortality? Sure, kids should take it easy in the gym, but back then, John was just trying to survive school. It worked. The bullies got an attitude adjustment, and so did he. Number 23. John lived in his car and kinda liked it. Here's another gem from John's chat with Stephanie McMahon on ESPN. When he first moved to California chasing a career in fitness, the guy was broke. Like, living in his car broke. But instead of treating it like some kind of tragic backstory or something he couldn't overcome, Cena called the whole experience dope, in his words, because nothing says life lesson quite like sleeping in a Robin Reliant. He managed to bag a job at his local Gold's Gym, which kindly let him park outside. So his daily routine went something like this. Wake up in the car, shower at work, train clients, close up shop, hit his own workout, then back to his four-wheeled apartment. In between all that, presumably, is where he'd fit in the all-you-can-eat pizza challenge. On the show, Stephanie McMahon, of course, couldn't exactly relate. Growing up a McMahon, she didn't exactly have to worry about sleeping in a parking lot, but Cena wasn't bitter about it. His 1991 Lincoln Continental might not have been the most glamorous residence, but it kept him dry, kept him safe, and kept the dream alive. That stretch of car life taught him to appreciate everything he has earned since. And honestly, somebody needs to track down that Lincoln, because in wrestling history, that thing's right up there with the SmackDown fist and Shane McMahon's lockbox. Number 22. He started reading at 40. Some people love a good paperback, others swear by their Kindle. And then there's John Cena, a man who didn't properly start reading until he was 40 years old. Yep, while most of us were forced through Lord of the Flies or something similar at school, John was too busy becoming one of the most successful wrestlers on the planet to bother with page turning. Fair enough, he probably had other things going on. At 48 years old now, Cena told the Wall Street Journal in 2024 that he only started picking up books once he hit the big 4-0. Even joked that his eyesight is getting worse, so he might have picked the worst possible time to start. Still, he's now an avid reader who makes time to relax with a book, or presumably whatever self-help improvement manual was on sale at the airport. Just picture it, WrestleMania 41. Cena beats Cody Rhodes for the WWE title, probably for the last time. He shakes his hand backstage, says thank you for the house, brother, maybe hits the after party for a little bit, then heads back to his hotel room. The new champ sits down, exhales, and then starts reading about, I don't know, flipping Goosebumps or something. Somewhere, millions of wrestling fans are furiously debating his win online. Half of them ecstatic, half of them outraged. And here's John, the man who caused it all, quietly turning pages and saluting the great man R.L. Stein. Either way, he is winning. We could all do with rebuilding our brains in this era of Instagram Reels and non-stop TikToks, and feasting on a good book is one of the best ways to stave off the brain rot. Number 21. His surname has a lot of meanings. Not every star signed to WWE gets to keep their shoot name. A lot of the time, WWE change names purely for branding purposes so that they can own the IP and make money from it. Mariah May to Blake Monroe, Ricky Starks to Ricky Saints. This has been happening for decades and continues to this day. Thankfully, John Cena dodged the bullet. No goofy stage name, no forced gimmick, which is probably because John Cena already sounds like a brand. Short, punchy, marketable, but here's the best part. The word Cena actually means different things in different languages. In Spanish, it's dinner. In Polish, it's price. In Portuguese, it means a scene, like in a movie. And in Latin, it's just the main meal of the day. Again, we just keep coming back to those free pizzas, don't we? John hasn't always gone by his real name, though. Before he hit the main roster and scalped Kurt Angle in the face with ruthless aggression, he was known as Prototype in OVW, a pretty generic ring name for a guy who was a pretty generic wrestler at the time, but totally acceptable developmental fare. Regardless, it's not exactly The Rock, and it's hard to imagine Cena ever reaching the same level of success had he not pivoted away from Prototype. Number 20. Why he picked jorts. Cena has worn several types of ring attire throughout his career. His earliest days on the WWE roster saw him wear multicolored trunks, longer than usual but not quite to the knee. Once he changed gimmicks in late 2002 and became a bad boy rapper, John switched to a mix of jean shorts and cargo shorts. He liked both, but had to find the right quality or face embarrassment. Confused? Well, Cena once told James Corden, of all people, that he picked denim as a staple because it didn't rip easily. He had torn a few pairs of cargo shorts to shreds, and he always found it awkward when everybody was staring at his crotch. So denim, which is a tougher material, became the go-to, especially on longer WWE tours. When asked why he didn't go with short trunks like fellow top stars Triple H, The Rock, Brock Lesnar, and others, Cena revealed that he just didn't feel comfortable in underwear, which he pointed out most wrestling trunks effectively are. That only makes that scene in the Suicide Squad all the more confusing. In terms of footwear, John chose sneakers so that he would stand out from the rest of the roster. Most wrestlers go for boots of varying lengths, and he wanted to look totally different. Plus, the shoes helped fit the gimmick, and they went with the jorts better than any kind of standard wrestling boots ever could have. Number 19. He had cancerous spots removed. Nobody's health should ever be taken for granted, but it's easy to overlook certain red flags when you're young, athletic, and distracted by other things. Cena revealed when promoting a partnership with Neutrogena in early 2025 that he never wore sunscreen growing up. Eventually, he decided to get a skin checkup and had a cancerous spot removed from his right pec. Then, Cena went back to see his doctor and had another removed on his right shoulder. When talking about all of this, he said, "It shows up like a white polka dot on the side of my chest and on my shoulder. If you watch WWE, you'll be able to see them." Personally, I can't say I'd ever noticed what Cena was talking about, and neither could John until he fully got it checked out, clearly. Of course, it's a very good thing that John caught wind of this so early and was able to get healthy before anything more serious developed. His doctor was on the ball. The importance of one's health should not be ignored, but it's worth repeating because a lot of times people don't get themselves checked out enough. Cena put that over huge during the Neutrogena bit. Further, Cena was grateful that his doctor was so gentle about the whole thing and helped put his mind at rest. The dreaded C word comes as a huge fright, so John thanks his lucky stars that he managed to catch the affected areas relatively early and continue his career. Number 18. What he does on his days off. Have you ever wondered what top-tier performers like John Cena do when they have a rare day off? During his peak, Cena was on the road relentlessly with WWE. It wasn't uncommon back then for wrestlers to get 2 days off a week if they were lucky, and then most of that time would be spent catching up on bills, laundry, and housework, and then they had to pack a case and get right back on the trail for even more shows. It was grueling, but Cena told the Wall Street Journal that he liked to call days off fuck-around days during his prime, and that is still something he uses today. The man himself goes out of his way to do absolutely nothing productive whatsoever. He explained, "The productivity is doing nothing. It could be just looking around and listening to the bees through the trees for 8 hours." Yes, it's kind of hard to imagine somebody with Cena's work ethic having days off at all, but everybody needs them. I need a break from time to time myself, and all I do is record stuff about wrestling and put it on the internet. Back in the day, John Cena sometimes went from headlining WrestleMania to making personal appearances, then working another damn match, all within 24 hours. So clearly, he needed a little downtime. Most people know that Cena has always been a bit of a gamer too. He once boasted about his sweet PC rig, so maybe that played a part in his occasional days off. From wrestling Triple H and Randy Orton to camping on Call of Duty. What a swine. I bet he was using Model 1887s before they got patched out as well. Good old Modern Warfare 2. We may never see your like again. Number 17. Lifting at his gym prompted his WWE retirement. On Stephanie's Places, John discussed the community atmosphere that he has worked to cultivate at his own private gym. Various WWE stars, including Bray Wyatt, Big E, and others have visited over the years, and they've all logged workout numbers for the wall. Famously, Big E still holds the record for the best bench press, and some other exercises as well, and as such, he is immortalized on the leaderboard. Pushing his own personal best to the limit has always been something that Cena has enjoyed, but he told Stephanie Stephanie that he started to notice how much he'd been struggling to match his old weightlifting numbers as he grew older. That was a humbling moment, and it made the WWE icon question his mortality as well as just how long he could keep going as a pro wrestler, even on a part-time basis. According to Cena on the ESPN show, toiling in the gym made him realize that it was time to call it a day in ring. Privately, without telling a soul, he made peace with the idea that he wouldn't be John Cena, WWE superstar, for too much longer. Age was catching up with him, and despite being stronger and in better shape at 48 than most people a third of his age, Cena was running out of time. Cena and WWE went on to announce that he would be embarking on a year-long retirement tour throughout 2025. That tour witnessed countless ups and downs, but it was a decision that John himself knew he had to reconcile before moving on with the rest of his life. He can't be the same beast he was in the gym back in the day, but he can be the best version of himself as he closes in on 50. Number 16, he ate 10,000 calories of Tic Tacs a day. Every wrestler has a weird pre-match ritual. Mick Foley used to blast pop music before throwing himself through barbed wire. Some wrestlers do hyper-specific warm-ups to get in the zone, and Scott Steiner, well, he probably spent his pre-show time teaching everybody in the locker room why their chances of winning were drastically reduced. John Cena's ritual, however, a little less violent and a lot more minty. For a while, he was absolutely addicted to Tic Tacs. He told the Kelly Clarkson show that he had to wean himself off of them after getting through 3 boxes a day. 3 boxes. That's not the little tiny ones. I'm talking pallets. That's not a mint habit. That's a cry for help. Apparently, Cena had spent 20 minutes before every match just shoveling them in, which he guessed came to around 10,000 calories of straight sugar. That's not a pre-match snack. That's a medical emergency. Cena called it a nervous superstition, but really, it sounds like a man trying to single-handedly destroy the global supply of Tic Tacs. Put the mints down, John. Nobody needs that much freshness. Eventually, he did quit the habit, though he never said what replaced it. Whatever it was, at least his breath was no longer minty enough to kill a small vampire. And that's not because Cena didn't want to put Nosferatu over at WrestleMania 2000 BC, brother. Number 15, lunch with him once cost fans 25 grand. How many Tic Tacs do you think you can buy for $25,000? In this economy, barely enough to stock the shelves at your local gas station, I imagine. But don't worry, this isn't an economics lecture. It's still an expose on everybody's favorite invisible man. Food prices just happen to be relevant because wait till you hear this one. Heading into WrestleMania 41 weekend, WWE and On Location announced that fans could enjoy a private lunch with John Cena for a cool $25,000. Yep, lunch. Not a yacht trip, not a blood diamond, lunch. It was at least in a 5-star restaurant, so you got the combined experience of meeting John Cena and eating at a world-class establishment. That being said, if I'm paying 25 G's, you best be covering my Uber there and back as well. And that Uber better be a private jet with diamonds. Thankfully, Cena did show up to these events. The man's got class after all, but even he must have looked at that price tag and thought, really? Shoutouts to anybody actually willing to drop that kind of money just to share fries with a wrestler, because the absurdity is kind of funny. Other WrestleMania weekend packages included watching the show from a private box with random legends and so forth. And in a couple of years, 25 grand is probably what you're going to be paying for a seat behind the entrance ramp anyway. Yay! Price gouging! It was basically a license to print money for John and WWE and On Location. Still, you have to wonder, did anyone who actually paid this feel like they got their money's worth? Where do these people live, and how can we become them? Because 25 grand could buy you, what, 3 WWE house show tickets these days? Number 14, fans pushed him into a hair transplant. If the fan who held up that sign reading "The Bald John Cena" is watching this, congratulations. You are single-handedly responsible for one of wrestling's greatest heel turns, against male pattern baldness. John Cena saw your little message, got embarrassed, and eventually decided to do something about it. So really, you did the Lord's work. Cena told People that he wished he'd done the transplant 10 years earlier, saying if there wasn't so much shame around it, I'd have gotten it done ages ago. Translation, thanks internet for bullying me into self-improvement. He finally went through with the transplant in November 2024 after carefully researching the best option for his very famous scalp. Judging by his retirement tour, it worked. The man's hairline came back stronger than his old US title reigns. Before the transplant, social media was brutal. During his match with Austin Theory at WrestleMania 39, fans were zooming in on screenshots screenshots like CSI analysts try not to blind themselves on the shiny bald spot. You'd think they were investigating a murder, not a natural part of being a man and growing old. Personally, I'm in favor of embracing the baldness. Clearly, John Cena was not, and that's okay. There are two different types of people in this world, after all. People who are correct and John Cena. Number 13. He shared nervous text messages with Bray Wyatt before Mania. WrestleMania 36 will forever be remembered as the strangest in history. Forced behind closed doors at the Performance Center, WWE nonetheless entertained fans across 2 nights as millions watching tried to comprehend the ever-changing landscape of the COVID-19 pandemic. Closing the first night with The Undertaker versus AJ Styles in a Boneyard match proved to be a popular decision. It was also one that had John Cena crapping his pants. John once told Chris Van Vliet on the Reporter's Inside show that he watched the Boneyard with an ominous feeling in the pit of his stomach. Reaching for his phone, he sent off a text to Bray Wyatt saying he was nervous about how their upcoming Firefly Funhouse match would come across as a follow-up cinematic accompaniment to the Boneyard. In a nice moment, it was Wyatt who put his peer's mind at rest. They'd already recorded some of the scenes for the Firefly Funhouse, and Bray had the confidence that it would all come together nicely during the second night of Mania. He was correct. John actually had nothing to fret about, but he went into night 2 with trepidation after seeing WWE's first theatric set piece. He wasn't 100% sure if the fans were going to embrace the wacky, comedy-laced and frankly odd Firefly Funhouse that he and Bray had put together. Their match included Cena going back to his humble beginnings as a boots and tights wrestler, plenty of references to Wyatt's past, and it also saw both men briefly join the NWO before looping back around to the present day. Number 12. His toilet break saved somebody's Mania moment. One can only imagine the kind of pressure doing the rounds backstage during WrestleMania. It is WWE's most important event, and that has been the case since 1985, and the production budget has ballooned to insane amounts in the modern era. Today, Mania is big business, and it requires laser focus to pull off. Timing is obviously one of the most important aspects because everything has to slot in nicely or else. Brodus Clay was likely bummed out behind the curtain at Mania 28. He had just been told that his segment was going to have to be cut from the format due to time constraints. That's when a passing John Cena leaned in and whispered to Brodus that he was heading to the bathroom and it might just take him a little bit longer than management wanted because he was just about to wrestle The Rock in the main event. Basically, Cena was ensuring that Clay still got his spot, still got his segment right before the headliner. His plan was to be posted as missing from Gorilla as higher-ups searched for him, meaning they'd need to press ahead with the Brodus stuff whether they wanted to or not. The fans might not have missed the dancing, but John realised that it was a big deal to Clay personally, and it didn't sit well with him to think of the dancing dinosaur missing out on his moment. Ah, good old Brodus Clay. Whatever happened to that guy, eh? It's like he got released by WWE and never did anything again. Weird one. Next, number 11. As I was puking, I crapped my pants. So, if you don't want to listen to an entry about John Cena pooping, hit the timestamp below. You're an adult, make your own choices. Still here? Good. Then let's talk about the most stress-inducing plop that John has ever dropped. The poor WWE staff who had to clean up John's mess years ago probably wanted to slap him for what happened during a Canadian house show when he was wrestling Scott Steiner. Or at least that's where Cena said it happened. The only record of him working Steiner was on the 14th of December 2002 live event in Jacksonville, Florida. It's entirely possible that John's memory is not working. Either that or Cage Match just doesn't include details from the show he's talking about. Regardless, John told WWE Magazine in 2008 that he wrestled Steiner while suffering from food poisoning. He figured things might get messy going in, but there was nowhere to hide. At one point during the match, Cena took a DDT and rolled out of the ring. Immediately, he asked the timekeeper where the best place to puke was, and was told to go under the ring. So he did, but the fledgling star also crapped his pants as he vomited, making for the worst dirty finish in wrestling history. In fairness, it was WWE Magazine where he told this story, so there is a good chance it was made up. Regardless, I had to read about it, so now you have to hear about it. Sorry. Number 10. He once had a movie tie-in finisher. Admittedly, some people out there will remember this, but Cena debuted a new 6 Move of Doom in 2018. During an otherwise forgettable house show match in Shanghai, China, he introduced what would briefly be known as the Lightning Fist to much fanfare, in what was either a colossally bad idea or a giant rib. The move saw John make an absolute meal out of hitting the ring, crossing his forearms across his chest, and unleashing a punch to the face. He literally just punched a bloke in the face, called it a finisher, and laughed all the way to the bank, even using the move at Super Showdown 2018. Still, John was having a laugh, and that's probably all he cared about. He probably did it to annoy people who said he only knew how to do 5 moves. Besides, the new finisher was a reference to his movie, tentatively titled Project X, with Jackie Chan. Project X was eventually renamed Hidden Strike and was released in 2023. Years beforehand, Cena hit the lightning fist in an event so disconnected from the movie that nobody in their right mind would have put the two things together without being told about it. For the record, the film had a budget of $80 million and raked in just under $1 million, so yeah, not exactly one of Cena's finest hours. Number 9. Cena knew his WWE career was tanking. Ruthless aggression was the catchphrase on John Cena's lips when he debuted versus Kurt Angle on the 27th of June 2002 episode of SmackDown. It was a losing effort, but Cena made his mark and left an impression on everybody. He went directly from that debut to a match with Chris Jericho at Vengeance in July, but then things started to drift away. On Stephanie's Places, John told how he knew deep inside that things weren't going well. Fans just hadn't connected with anything about his act beyond the debut, and he was really struggling to get over after an initial flurry. Worse, he was fully aware that he sucked inside the ring. There had been no signs of improvement since the Angle confrontation, and that was lingering on John's mind. He was feeling the heat, so much so that he figured it was only a matter of months before WWE let him go. Stephanie hearing him rap on a tour bus changed everything. That was the break that Cena needed, but it wasn't a knowing ploy from the guy. He didn't even know that Stephanie had been listening to him peel off rhymes and verses, and he didn't think of pitching a bad boy rap gimmick for TV until Stephanie heard him and said, hey, this could work. The character saved his skin. It was, in John's mind, the difference between getting to stick around in WWE or being cut loose and told to try his luck in TNA or on the independent circuit. Playing the Spitfire babyface with the garish boots and tights just wasn't working for the future Super Cena, and he knew it. Number 8. It was his call to stop rapping. Most people likely believe that WWE changed Cena's character from witty rapper to real-life Barney the Dinosaur in 2008 once the promotion went PG, but that is wide of the mark. Watch company content from before that switchover, and you'll find that John had actually started downplaying most of his edgier characteristics before the PG rating came in. Cena revealed himself on the WWE-produced Ruthless Aggression era documentary, which we know is 100% factual, that he marched into Vince McMahon's office and said they had to change things up right now. Why? Well, he'd spotted that more kids and families in general had started attending WWE shows before the PG change, and he wanted to embrace that, rather than risk turning them away. As such, he toned down his style, softened the edges, and went from a rapper to a family-friendly babyface. It's fascinating to learn that this was his call, not McMahon's. In fact, it's likely why the then boss trusted John as much as he did. He had his finger on the pulse of the WWE audience, and he noticed that things were visibly changing before his eyes. Live events had more children around ringside again, and he wanted to meet that halfway rather than thumbing his nose and being stubborn. It was a marketing master plan. WWE probably would have told Cena to tone things down anyway following the PG stuff, but he was way ahead of the curve and did it himself. Unfortunately, his infamous outburst about bologna fudge mustard and other clangers did end up coming from this. At times, Cena acted like a bit of a baby in a man's body, and it didn't suit everybody in the office, but it also made him one of the most successful wrestlers ever, so yeah, we can forgive that stuff. Number 7. The Undertaker thought he was ribbing at WrestleMania 34. The Undertaker's name carries respect in WWE circles. He was a locker room leader for decades, and it was smart for young wrestlers to do everything they could to get a nod from the dead man backstage. If he accepted them, then they were golden. If not, then others would follow suit, and there could be trouble in the old boys club that was WWE at the time. Something was different about Undertaker heading into WrestleMania 34. He was desperate to put on a good match after stinking up the place versus Roman Reigns the previous year at Mania 33, so he trained hard to get in great shape and was looking forward to putting on a 30-minute war with John Cena. Only that didn't happen. The legend only found out that his match with Cena would last less than 3 minutes when he arrived at the building for the show. At first, he thought Vince McMahon was taking the piss, but John also pointed out that, hey, he'd been burying Undertaker during the pre-match promos. So, to him, it had to be a squash, and he had to be the one staring at the bright lights above. Undertaker thought that both men were ribbing ribbing him. Surely they hadn't spent all this time building the match only to just go 3 minutes. He was wrong. Privately, The Undertaker was disappointed when he found out that John didn't want to tear down the house with him, even though at that stage of their respective careers, the way it played out was probably for the best. Number 6. WWE nixed a heel turn in 2012. Even though WWE resisted turning John Cena heel until 2025, they actually contemplated having him go rogue countless times before that during his peak run, but strong merch sales, John's own unwillingness to turn his back on the fans, and changing creative plans elsewhere always prevented it from happening. Ex-WWE writer Brian Gewertz once said on the Cheap Heat podcast that Vince McMahon nearly turned Cena heel heading into WrestleMania 28's match with The Rock. Come the show itself, he would have had new music, a boxing robe in his entrance attire, and a singlet look with boots, and he would have ceased literally changing people's lives with Make-A-Wish outside the ring. Ultimately, it was scrapped, but Cena confirmed himself on Chris Van Vliet's Insight show, saying that he got cold feet about the whole thing. He hadn't been a heel since going babyface in late 2003. Back then, fan sentiment had helped him turn. His rap gimmick had been purring away nicely since the previous year, and John was gaining momentum as a breakout star. People turned him organically, and the face run stuck. After batting away suggestions of a heel turn for years, Cena seemed destined to do so in 2012. He recorded new entrance music especially for the turn, but WWE didn't go through with it in the end. It doesn't exactly sound like anybody was really up for it. They half-heartedly pitched it, got some things rolling, and then cancelled it once push came to shove. Number 5. Cena regrets his behaviour towards The Rock. Generally, despite collectively knowing that they were doing monster business and had chemistry in segments, John Cena and The Rock didn't always see eye to eye. They weren't friends behind the curtain during their 2011 to 2013 rivalry. If anything, John believes he was a little rough on The Rock throughout, which is something he apologised for during a chat with Howard Stern in 2024. According to Cena, he was wrong to publicly question just how much The Rock loved wrestling. At the time, he couldn't understand why the Great One was splitting his focus between Hollywood and WWE. Obviously, given his own success in film, he now understands the mindset. Looking back, Cena was slightly surprised that The Rock was able to be so professional in the face of some verbal jabs that John launched at him. It was all business, albeit with an edge. Cena openly mocked Dwayne Johnson for scribbling promo notes on his hand before segments, and he stuck the boot in pretty hard, building towards their matches at both WrestleMania 28 and 29. The crux of John's argument seemed to be that Rocky had ran away from wrestling as soon as the silver screen came knocking. Nowadays, both guys get along really well. Rock was even there for Cena's fabulously executed heel turn in 2025. He didn't play much of a role afterwards, but they'd come a long way from two guys who looked like they wanted to headbutt each other for a few years there. Number 4. Cena was the last to know about his turn. This is wild, but it's apparently true. Triple H left Cena until last in line when figuring out who was on board with the heel turn at Elimination Chamber 2025. The game mapped out his plan of action on the WWE Unreal Netflix series that aired earlier this year, which clued in fans on exactly who found out first. Nick Khan was first, and he thought it was a great idea. Then, after getting his blessing, Triple H called his old foe, The Rock, to find out what he was thinking, after The Rock had previously pitched the generationally dumb idea of Cody Rhodes turning heel. Incredibly, Hunter then dialed rapper Travis Scott of all people to let him know what would be happening, and after that, he got in touch with Cody Rhodes to lay everything out. You might be wondering when John Cena's name is going to pop up here. You know, the dude who was actually turning heel? He didn't even get the nod next. Creative team members Ed Koskey and Bruce Pritchard knew the scoop before John. He was legitimately the last person that Paul Levesque called about the Chamber's booking. If anything, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the WWE boss would want to sound out Cena first and foremost. No, even Travis Scott knew that John Cena would be going heel before John did. Levesque ran the risk of telling everybody and their auntie about the plans, then finding out that Cena maybe wouldn't want to go through with it in the end. He clearly did, but what if that wasn't the case? Number 3. He hated the heel run. John Cena will be the first person to tell you that his 2025 heel run was a complete and utter waste of time. It started hot. The entire wrestling community was shocked and stunned when Cena turned on Cody Rhodes at Elimination Chamber to seemingly side with The Rock and Travis Scott. It was one of the greatest WWE angles of the decade, if not of all time. Then things turned south. The Rock vanished. Cena barely mentioned him, and the main meat of John's villainous streak became repetitive "you people" promos and some complete nonsense about an abusive relationship with the audience. The whole ordeal came across as undercooked, and there was never any explanation for why he had joined forces with the final boss. WWE realized that they were swimming upstream and cut their losses. They turned Cena babyface again for the final stretch of his retirement tour, then had him say sorry to the same people he'd been calling out for months. It was messy, and even John knew it was lame. During interviews, John relented that his heavily publicized heel turn had bombed in the worst way. There was nothing to it after the first shockwave hit. WWE penned a compelling first chapter, but then didn't know where to go from there. In short, the heel turn shouldn't have happened at all unless there was a worthy follow-up. Even Cena realizes that in hindsight. WWE invested a lot of time planning and carefully considering what would go into the turn, but not what happened next. And it showed. Number 2, WCW almost signed him first. It's crazy to realize that WCW has been gone for 25 years, a quarter century just like that. It's even wackier to hear that the now defunct company almost signed none other than John Cena to a deal before WWE could get their hands on him. This is a story that John told on Busted Open Radio a few years back. Apparently, WCW's top brass viewed him as a prospect and they were interested. Their interest prompted the then WWF to make the move and snap John up. They leapt in with a counteroffer, which John said was strictly so that he wouldn't go to WCW for peanuts. Peanuts? From the same promotion that hurled money at guys that didn't even fly in for TV? Surely not. To be fair, Cena wasn't a household name in the industry at that point. He was simply a rookie with a great physique looking to make a name for himself. The scouts knew he was something special, but Cena admitted, "I kind of got hired defensively. The McMahon family just didn't want WCW to get their paws on anybody." But of course, had Cena actually showed up on Nitro, his contract would have been available as an option when Vince bought the remnants of his own competition in March 2001. So, put another way, there's a solid chance he would have ended up in WWE anyway. The group refused to take any risks on that, however, and signed him up. Christ, it would have been some story for John to tell had he wrestled Goldberg on Thunder or something like that. Or worse, maybe he'd have been staring at the lights for Kwee-Wee on Worldwide. Good grief. Number 1, John wanted to play Vince McMahon in a movie. This is highly unlikely because, lawsuits, but there was a now abandoned biopic called Pandemonium planned on Vince McMahon back in 2017. At the time, John Cena was doing everything he could to drum up acting gigs and make something of himself in Hollywood, but he also knew that he was still closely associated with wrestling. So in 2017, John told The Hollywood Reporter that he would love to step into Vince's shoes and actually play the role of his boss in a movie. In an honest moment, Cena did say that another, more seasoned actor would probably do a better job than he could, but he fancied giving it a go regardless. Imagine, it would have been crazy to see Cena made up to look like retro Vince as he schemed WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, Hulkamania, and more. Disgraceful events in Vince's life that have happened since then mean there is next to no chance of the film ever being made. The closest we'll ever get to anything like that is the Netflix series from 2024. That did not go into any level of depth on the legal stuff or the lawsuit against him, but it did contain a lot of waffling from Vince himself. Maybe Netflix missed a trick by not ringing John up to ask if he'd like to play Vince in certain segments. That would have been totally unnecessary, but he might have gone for it. He was definitely game in 2017, that's for sure, and in the end, it was a near fall for producers keen on bringing the project to life.
Some people still won't give John Cena his due, and that is mad. Whether you like to hear it or not, he is one of the best pro wrestlers ever because, simply put, you can't stay at the top for as long as he did if you're not doing something right. Nothing else, the man was a merchandise machine. He became such a commodity that Cena soon transitioned into being the guy that WWE could use to make other stars, and that did happen. A young Simon never thought in a million years that CM Punk would walk away with the WWE title at 2011's Money in the Bank, and the fact he did so and beat John Cena was the icing on the cake. And I like that damn icing. While there have been success stories, it has gone the other way too. Guys who were matched against the man who can't be seen, but unfortunately weren't able to get the rub in the same way. Why was this? Well, we're about to find out. I'm Salmon from WhatCulture. Please do subscribe. This is 10 wrestlers John Cena couldn't get over. Number 10, the Great Khali. When you first see the Great Khali, you can't help but be in awe. The man is genuinely huge and even makes the likes of The Undertaker and Big Show look small in comparison.
It's the whole reason he was brought into the WWE, and you can't fault that logic. If you get a casual fan watching and they see this mammoth, they will just wait for a moment longer to see what he's going to do. Kill somebody, perhaps. The more hardcore audience knew the deal, though, and yes, Khali wasn't exactly Ricky Steamboat between the ropes. Be it his size or the fact his knees didn't work, the Giant struggled to do much of anything, which was actually kinda sad when you see him during his younger days. The man could move. Father Time just kicked his ass. A year after his debut, the plan was still there to cement the guy at the top of the card, though, which is why he challenged John Cena for the title at Judgment Day and One Night Stand in 2007. Now, yes, Cena did win both of these, once by submission and once by pinfall, and maybe if it hadn't been so cut and dry, the experiment would have worked. The problem was, even during these, the crowd didn't really care about Khali. In fact, the feud in general is considered a dud. It was the catalyst to convince WWE this was not going to work, and soon the monster was doing comedy kissing angles. Wrestling is weird. Number 9, Lord Tensai. I'm not sure anyone could have made this work because it just made no sense. The man that WWE fans knew as A-Train had left the company to become a sensation in Japan as Giant Bernard, and yet when he was welcomed back into the fold, he was some Eastern leader man dude thing. And he drew all over his face, none of it was normal. It's a shame, as in 2012, WWE needed a guy like the real-life Matt Bloom, but it was over before it even began. Fans would chant Elba at him because they knew who he used to be, and even when he went on a winning streak, the crowd just wouldn't accept it. It's too jarring. It's why they didn't buy into a Cena vs Tensai program, and why when John gave him his first loss, it was the beginning of the end. It wasn't Cena's or one CM Punk's fault either, who both lost to him on TV, but again, it was the persona. We couldn't get to the good bit because we couldn't get past the front door. 6 months after his debut, Tensai was losing matches to Santino Marella and soon became Sweet Tea. Why oh why he didn't just come back as the guy we remembered, I will never know, but hey ho, this one was really unfair. What could have been? Number 8, The Big Show. At WrestleMania 20, The Big Show and John Cena fought for the US title and fans lost their minds. It was at the point where the Doctor of Thugonomics could do no wrong and the audience was desperate for Cena to win. So when he picked up Show for the then FU and hit it for the win, forget about it, everybody lost their minds. It was pretty great. 5 years later, things were very different. John Cena was no longer a rapper and had embraced his role at the top, and Big Show had lost some of his allure because he had turned from heel to face and from face to heel at least 4,622 times. That never helps. It meant when they tangled for the WWE title at Mania 25 and in the 2 pay-per-views that followed, it just didn't have the same pop. It was really down to the company because Show had never been booked as a top threat, and therefore fans never actually thought he'd win here. When that happens, it's hard to invest. There has to be the sense of some kind of upset. WWE would keep going back to this over the years, and really it was the same every time. Shame, really. It was less is more with the former Giant, and yet that is not what happened at all from day one. Oh well. Number 7, Roman Reigns. WWE tried everything to get Roman Reigns over, which was actually the mistake to begin with. If they had just let the big dog be the big dog, and probably not have called him the big dog, Roman would have been beloved. When we do see glimpses of his clearly naturally laid-back character, there's money to be made. Just never needed to be the underdog hero, just let him kick ass. All these attempts eventually led to John Cena, as was always going to be the way. The thing is, this should have been saved for a WrestleMania where it truly could have shone, but instead it happened at No Way Out 2017. No, I don't get it either. And let's not pretend it wasn't good, it was. The promos leading up to it were straight out of the pages of reality, and when push came to shove, Reigns beat Cena clean. John then did that passing of the torch moment by raising his hand, but by then the audience had already made up their mind. I mean, not even The Rock could convince people to react differently, so Cena didn't have a chance. It's why WWE was kind of right to do this anyway. It did add to what Roman was meant to be, and if the audience were going to boo him regardless, then so be it. All that really needed to happen was a change of direction for Reigns, and everything likely would have fallen into place. Hindsight is a wonderful tool. Number 6, Baron Corbin. I think Baron Corbin gets a hard time. Pretty much doing everything that's been asked of him ever since he was called up to the main roster. The tide turned when WWE had him on every single segment on Raw for 79 years. That would have been too much for anyone, and we're still dealing with the fallout from that. Overexposure is a real thing. When it came to his feud with John Cena, however, there were other forces at work which also made things problematic. Prior to it, the rumor was Corbin had fallen foul of management by being too vocal about concussion protocol. There seemed to be some proof here, because he was then treated like a goof and lost his Money in the Bank briefcase before challenging Cena at SummerSlam 2007. Look at the date though, Cena had just lost to Roman, Baron had basically thrown away his opportunity, and by the time he had been AA'd into the floor and pinned, it was all very confusing. I'm not even sure the idea here was to help Corbin as opposed to just slap him on the wrist. What a tightrope you have to walk. Number 5, Kevin Federline. This was odd, wasn't it? A guy that nobody really wanted to beat John Cena came in and beat John Cena. I don't know, you tell me. But after deciding the rapper should be injected into Cena's feud with Umaga, on the 1st of January Raw 2007, Kev walked in to face John and actually pinned him after interference from the Samoan Bulldozer. Now I get it, this was done to garner mainstream press, but when Wade Barrett wasn't allowed to beat Cena and some random guy was, well, that just hurts. The real issue was, while Federline had his fans no doubt, they weren't in WWE and weren't going to follow him there. It wasn't like Mike Tyson when the world wanted to see what was going to happen, it was just a musician beating the top guy in WWE. No wonder it didn't work. Number 4, Alberto Del Rio. A victim of poor timing maybe, Alberto Del Rio's feud with John Cena in 2011 had one huge thing going against it. At the time, the only person fans wanted to see fight John was CM Punk. WWE had gone in a totally different direction. To this day, we don't know why. Well, we do, but you know. 9 years ago, CM Punk was easily the hottest star in wrestling and should have been treated this way, but the powers that be had another idea. If they switched in Del Rio to be involved with the voice of the voiceless and Cena, maybe the audience would start to see the Mexican on their level. Doesn't work that way, and instead we scratched our heads trying to figure out what the hell had happened. Still, these two fought for the title over many pay-per-views, and every step of the way the question was fine, but where is CM Punk? And for reasons that will never be made clear, he was having a big argument with Kevin Nash. It was probably here where the seed was planted for CM Punk to walk out of the company in 2014, and really, it didn't help Alberto Del Rio at all. Number 3, Bray Wyatt. When John Cena and Bray Wyatt clashed at WrestleMania 36, it worked wonders. The Firefly Funhouse match was bizarre in the best possible way, and it made The Fiend feel like a threat. A strange threat, but a threat. This was not the same in 2014. Still, in his debut year on the main roster, fans had decided Wyatt was the freshest thing to happen in ages. He had so much momentum he was deemed to be the guy to take on Cena at Mania 30, and while we should have known better, the general consensus was if WWE pulled the trigger here with Bray, it could cement him for a while. And we shall never know if that would have been true. Cena handedly did away with him, and even though Wyatt would win during a follow-up at Extreme Rules, he then lost the third encounter, and that was that. Bray was more bark than bite. I guess the silver lining is that it tied into their story in 2020, but then again, if we had done right here, we may never have even needed The Fiend to begin with. Number 2, Kane. Back in 2012, Kane wanted John Cena to embrace the hate. Actually quite an intriguing angle at first, but when it became clear that the big red machine was being used as a make-weight to get Cena ready for someone else, the interest just vanished. We'd been here before. And this wasn't Kane's doing. The Undertaker's fake brother had a tremendous run throughout his career, but by this point the law of diminishing returns had set in. Happens to us all. And think about it too, what hadn't we seen Kane do? We'd even witnessed him electrocute Shane McMahon's testicles. The well of ideas had dried up. The story was still sound though. After years of being booed, Kane told Cena to just accept it and turn to the dark side. John even seemed interested in this at one point, but of course when the feud finished at the Elimination Chamber, he decided to not do that and just carry on hustling and respecting. Well, kind of. This was also the time when John pretty much treated Zack Ryder like dirt after kissing his girlfriend and watching as Kane pushed Long Island IZ off the entrance ramp. Go watch this. There is no point. Number 1, John Laurinaitis. Yep, this happened, 2012, Over the Limit. John Cena laced up his boots ready for a war with the one and only John Laurinaitis, aka the former Johnny Ace. Much like Corbin, Laurinaitis had just been used too much by this point, and every segment he was on became one too many. No one needed to see him as much as they did, and it just hurt. This is why WWE decided they could rectify this by having him feud with John Cena, and that it should lead to an actual match. Unfortunately, the fans didn't want to see this either, and even the crazy decision to have Johnny win after Big Show interference did not help. In fact, most people were just baffled, especially because of the talent roster at the time. So many guys would have loved to have been in this spot, but as we now know, they were not. I guess
we should just all move on.
John Cena will go down as one of the most important WWE wrestlers of all time on merit. There is a good reason that the company crowned him a 17-time world champion and christened him the greatest of all time, calling him that every breathing second during his retirement year. Cena was, during the barren later years of Ruthless Aggression and pretty much the entire PG era, WWE's franchise player, the first one they'd had since Steve Austin. A legitimately huge draw at the top of the card, Cena is nonetheless a very divisive man. He received immense backlash in the 2010s when he was perceived as being overpushed, and he was called Super Cena for a reason. From the Nexus to Bray Wyatt, the list of wrestlers he probably should have put over is pretty damn long. Beyond his push, Cena has also drawn criticism for his working style over the years, which is a double-edged sword. There have definitely been times in his career where Cena could have benefited from being a more dynamic wrestler. That being said, lumping him down as a 5 moves of doom wrestler is a little bit silly in my opinion, because there is a lot more to being a great wrestler than simply being able to do 500 cool moves. If that's all wrestling was about, Teddy Hart would be WWE champion. But the thing about John Cena's working style is that while he has traditionally favoured a more simplistic approach, sometimes he goes bananas, pulling out code reds and ranas and a whole bunch of other flashy things that are usually more at home in Reseda, California than Stamford, Connecticut. These matches almost always serve as a middle finger to those who see Cena as a limited wrestler, and today we celebrate them. I'm Andy from WhatCulture, and here are 7 matches where John Cena went full work rate. Number 7, versus Logan Paul at Clash in Paris 2025. Logan Paul is an interesting opponent to start with here because the guy is basically all work rate. When he started wrestling, he very quickly showed that he can hang with almost anybody athletically and is more than willing to take risks and make big spots to get the crowd going. The other thing about Logan Paul is that his fundamentals are basically non-existent. He is the very definition of a spot monkey, which makes him a funny opponent for Indie Cena. Together, he and Super Cena traded moves and holds aplenty for just over 26 minutes. Cena had turned babyface again shortly beforehand, which was kind of perfect. Opposite a genuinely likable babyface in Cena, who was in the midst of his retirement tour, Paul had a huge advantage as a heel in front of an audience that was going to hate anybody on the other side of Big John. By now, people were well accustomed to seeing Cena hit moves like the Code Red, but it still looks pretty cool when he does it, because he looks like a man stepping out of his comfort zone. That's largely because he is. Wrestling should never look like some kind of perfectly coordinated, smoother than a Kinder Egg gymnastics display. It should be a little clunky at times because they are simulating a struggle. That Cena's high spots are kind of rough adds to that. Number 6, versus AJ Styles at Crown Jewel 2025. Generally, most people watching this will have more time for Crown Jewel's epic with AJ Styles than the Logan Paul match simply because it's AJ Styles. That's not meant as a knock on anyone who prefers Logan Paul to AJ Styles. Objectively, AJ is a better worker, but it's an unfair comparison considering the disparity in experience between them. AJ has been one of the best in the world for several decades at this stage, while Logan Paul has had only a few dozen matches. It was nice to see AJ get some flowers versus Cena in Australia for Crown Jewel nonetheless. Pre-match, John prepared a touching speech for AJ that set the table nicely. Then they produced a showing worthy of ending 2 legendary careers at once. These boys left no stones unturned as they delighted fans in Perth for 27 minutes. There was a knowing nod towards the absurdity of their prolonged finisher train as well, but it kind of worked. John hit AJ with Bray Wyatt's sister Abigail. Styles responded by showing some love for Christopher Daniels, and there were other glances towards everybody from Chris Jericho and Randy Orton to Samoa Joe and James Storm. It was mayhem and it was a lot of fun as well. At times, as Wade Barrett said on commentary, it was as though these guys were trying to work something you'd see in WWE 2K, not a real-life wrestling match. Cena had his working boots on down under. His last international showdown will live long in the memory, and it'll take some topping during AJ's own retirement tour in 2026. They worked a game of can you top this, hitting moves for the sake of moves and to pay tribute to those who had illuminated their path along the way. Not exactly the deepest story in the world, but a hell of a good time nonetheless. Number 5, versus Sami Zayn from the 4th of May 2015 Raw. The 5th of September 2025 SmackDown became notable for John Cena handing over his US title Open Challenge deal to Sami Zayn, which came over 10 years after they had torn the house down in Montreal. Somehow, despite that first match lasting barely over 10 minutes, it would become known as an instant classic and one of the best TV matches of the era. Bret Hart introduced Sami to a booming pop, and the Hitman would have been mighty proud of the match that his man and John put together on the night. Keep in mind that this occurred in an era where Cena wasn't exactly known as some kind of flippy workhorse who could produce bangers in his sleep. It was still during the dreaded "you can't wrestle" and "Cena sucks" days, so this was a real treat. One of the best things about his Open Challenge spots were that they handed opportunities to guys who'd been showing out on NXT or elsewhere on the wrestling map before WWE. Sami was one of those people, and so was his good pal Kevin Owens. Special mention to the absolute wars that Cena and KO had in 2015, by the way. Those were really good, but a completely different style. In 10 rapid-fire minutes, Cena made Zayn look like somebody who belonged on the main roster and was close to being his equal. It was an impressive show of professionalism and skill from a star so big he honestly didn't need to give anybody a leg up the ladder. Sami played his underdog role to perfection, and he stunned Cena with some tidy spots that would pop back up in their redo in 2025. Number 4 versus Cesaro, the 6th of July 2015 Raw. By the time John Cena's US title Open Challenge series existed, some fans had already applied the nickname Indie Cena to John, thanks to exactly the kind of matches that we are talking about today. The aforementioned match with Sami Zayn was top-notch, but then Cena only went and topped it by inviting a personal favourite of his to work back-to-back wonders on Raw. Cesaro beat Cena by disqualification on the 29th of June, and it was so fun that WWE decided to press the repeat button on the 6th of July. This time, Cena and Cesaro went 30 pulsating minutes. Again, like with the Zayn match, it's important to remember the era being discussed here. WWE were scrambling for fresh ideas and new stars in 2015. This is true, but they weren't exactly prone to promoting 30-minute straight-up wrestling matches in the main event slot on Raw every other Monday. If they did push something lengthy onto television at the time, then it probably didn't feature a mid to upper mid-card name like Cesaro. He was given the floor to exhibit all the strengths that fans who'd enjoyed his work in Ring of Honor and elsewhere had loved for years. Credit where it's due as well, Cena did have ye olde working boots on, of course, but he laid out at times and let Cesaro's strength become the main focal point. One minor mini botch on a springboard stunner aside, this was a flawless match that had plenty of action and showcased just how adaptable Cena could be when he was motivated. This 2015 run truly was a golden period for him between the ropes. He was largely out of the main event scene and seemed eager to elevate rather than dominate. Number 3 versus CM Punk on the 25th of February 2013 Raw. Money in the Bank 2011 will forever be regarded as one of WWE's finest hours. CM Punk beat John Cena in the main event to steal the top title and hold it hostage, which put a brilliant bow on his Summer of Punk run that year. Yes, Money in the Bank 2011 was magic, but it's not the match being analysed on this occasion. It was a very different type of match. A classic, but one more reliant on smoke and mirrors than WORKRATE. No, my friends, that award goes to the 25th of February 2013 episode of Raw. WWE billed this as a true blow-off to the Punk vs Cena rivalry, but there was also a WrestleMania 29 title shot versus The Rock waiting for the winner. Those stakes had fans in Dallas glued to the ring throughout. Spare a fault for anybody who was bursting for the toilet or fancied grabbing a drink or snack here, because they would have missed at least a few minutes of one of the best WWE TV matches ever. Cena bust out a fisherman suplex, he hit a guillotine leg drop from the top rope, and there was even a bloody pile driver thrown in for good measure. That move was lesser spotted back then, so it grabbed attention from all comers of the wrestling universe. So, mind you, did John using a bloody Hurricane Rana, of all moves. Rey Mysterio, eat your heart out. That fed into the attitude adjustment for the win, and Cena was heading to Mania for another match with The Rock. Once in a lifetime could suck it. This match was fire. Number 2 versus AJ Styles at Royal Rumble 2017. For John Cena, world title number 16, thus equaling Ric Flair's record, quote unquote, if you know you know, came at Royal Rumble 2017 and at the expense of AJ Styles. Styles had pocketed the WWE title in between beating Cena at SummerSlam 2016 and the 2017 Rumble. He'd shown himself to be one of the most reliable stars on the entire roster in his first full year with the company, but fans just knew that Hungry Jonathan wasn't staying away from the dinner table for too long. The upside was that Cena and AJ had chemistry coming out of their asses, so another stormer of a match was practically guaranteed before WWE's roster touched down in San Antonio for the show. There was so much to examine once they did, and a celebrated Cena vs AJ rematch hit the ring. For his part, John showed off some subtle heelish vibes nearly a decade in advance of his turn, as he grew frustrated over an inability to put Styles away. Throughout, Cena was in moves mode with a Z, by airing some spots that fans had never really seen from this era of his career, but are now expected when he's in there with the likes of AJ. The live crowd itself was sucked in by all of the near falls and bigger spots, and there wasn't much hatred for Cena's 16th world title win at all after the fact. Being honest, it would have taken a brave soul to boo Cena following this performance. He was a man on a mission, and I'm not talking about Mabel. Number 1 versus Shawn Michaels from the 23rd April 2007 Raw. And so we arrive at John Cena turning his work rate up to 11. These two had already worked wonders at WrestleMania 23 when they marched into London's Earl Court over in the UK in April 2007 for a little episode of Raw. Little did anybody clutching a ticket stub expect that they were about to be taken on a 55-minute thrill ride by a melodramatic master in HBK and a newer star who was raring to prove that he could hang in such a setting. Close to a full hour later, both wrestlers were exhausted, and so were those around ringside. It was work rate by definition. If you're going to go that long, you can't exactly have the cardio of Neil Ruddock. It wasn't just all gas, no brakes, however. The way both men picked their moments to hit the accelerator must be applauded as well. At the time, this was considered arguably the finest example of storytelling and pure wrestling melodrama that had graced WWE in years. Michaels was known for producing quality, but there would have been a ton of applause reserved for Cena behind the curtain as well. He had come through, more than holding up his end of the bargain by matching Shawn every step of the way, which wasn't something that just any old scrub could do. Psychology, action, drama, history, an old master versus young lion plot, excellent commentary, a hot crowd. Yes, this match had it all. Quite simply, it is one of the greatest WWE matches to ever take place abroad, and it would take some bout to top it in the future.
You don't get to the top by accident. If you do, shut the hell up and don't tell anyone, because if someone realizes, you'll be thrown down quicker than you can say, "Hey Vince, I grabbed that brass ring." When you reach the promised land as well, most guys will do what they can to protect their spot, which also makes sense. You worked your ass off, you made it, now it's time to stay there. It's why the majority of main eventers are very cagey about who they will put over. Steve Austin did this, Hulk Hogan was obsessed with it, we know the Triple H story, and while The Rock seems to be an exception, even he would navigate those waters with style and skill. Given all that info that has just been thrown at you, it should be no surprise that John Cena also fits into this window. Ever since he got to the top of the ladder, he's made sure to stay there, which means every now and then, some people have just been told no. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 wrestlers John Cena would not put over. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 10, Jesus. This whole thing was just weird to begin with, especially in hindsight. John Cena is a proper star, and Jesus is just doing whatever Jesus is doing. I just hope he's well. But after, in storyline, Cena had been stabbed in a nightclub, and yes, you heard what I said, that was the narrative here, by Carlito and his band of thugs. John got in the ring with one of them, Jesus, and just whipped his ass, even though again, he had been punctured courtesy of a big blade. The man who can't be seen even got smacked in the stomach with a kendo stick, but completely ignored it before proceeding to beat Jesus down for around 7 minutes in a very one-sided US title defense in 2004. You can take this one of two ways too. Would Cena have made it to where he was without things like this, or should he have at least shown some weakness to help his opponent out just a touch? Answers on a postcard. Number 9, The Miz. John Cena and The Miz have clashed a lot over the last decade or so. In many ways, they're like two peas in the same pod, although veering off in wildly different directions. But both are synonymous with the WWE nowadays, even if one is clearly a bigger star. Since this war began though, what's noticeable is that The Miz has never really got one over Cena, ever, at all. We can start at WrestleMania 7, where Rock and John took center stage despite Miz being the champ, and despite his fluke victory, Mr. Awesome wasn't treated at the level he should have been. Then there was Over the Limit 2011, where Miz had help in the form of Alex Riley and a lead pipe, but that still wasn't enough. Cena had his number again. Even at the Elimination Chamber in 2017, Miz was gotten rid of after one AA, despite at that point the AA being less of a finishing move and more of a deliberate sign that a near fall is coming. Then there's WrestleMania 33, and we know what happened there. Of course, Miz has beaten Cena here and there, but it's never been allowed to have any serious weight. Thankfully, the A-lister has managed to run with all that and come up the other side smelling of roses, but still, the proof is there for all to see. Number 8, Bray Wyatt. A lot of people say that the beginning of the end for Bray Wyatt happened after he failed to beat John Cena at WrestleMania 30. After a long storyline where Wyatt promised to unleash Cena's dark side, he failed in doing that, and then also failed when it came to vanquishing John too. He got beat and that was that. Or he wishes. Clashing again at Extreme Rules 2014, Cena threw everything out the window during the build by just laying into the Wyatt family on the April 14th episode of Raw. Rather than sell the fact this trio was meant to be scary, Cena went the other way and basically said that if they just let their hair down, they'd probably become the life of the party. Rowan had mad jokes, Harper would streak through the quad, and Wyatt himself was a ladies' man. It was all for the fun, of course, but it does all tie in. Bray & Co kept telling us they were intimidating and powerful, but then they never won, and they got dragged down verbally here until we all started to believe it. In short, not only did Cena not put over Wyatt in the ring, but he didn't put the premise over either. That hurt, and hurt bad, and now look. Number 7, Alberto Del Rio. Weird one this, but as a lot of people do point to it as a moment in time, it's only fair we talk about it. But when Alberto Del Rio first arrived in the WWE, his character was built around being a self-entitled rich asshole who believed he deserved to be the world champion. Del Rio was great at playing it, and was soon hated by everyone. Nice, the system works. However, on the August 22nd, 2011 Raw, after Alberto had won the gold, Cena dressed him down as nothing more than a pretender who wore flea market scarves and drove rented luxury cars. Now this is as pro wrestling as it gets, but it ripped the momentum from the new champ and turned him into just another guy. Soon, fans were just chanting boring at him. That couldn't have been the plan. The real issue was even if Cena was losing to Del Rio, he was losing to an opponent who we've been told was worth nothing. No one cares about it then, and the status quo continues on as normal. For example, what would we all say today if Cena told Andrade Cien Almas that he is nothing but the next failed attempt to replace Rey Mysterio? Exactly. Number 6, Alex Riley. One day a story about Alex Riley and John Cena is going to come to light. There's plenty of mumblings already out there, but as Riley himself has never told it firsthand, it's hard to make heads or tails of it. But if we follow the apparent narrative, Cena saw Alex as somewhat of a no-hoper backstage, something former WWE star Tyler X had no problem talking about. To quote the man verbatim, he said this during a Reddit AMA. Cena thought Riley did something wrong every single day. Can't mistake that. Rex also disclosed that Cena would hunt through Riley's bag before, and I quote again, bitching him out for using supplements, which seems odd. He also recounted a story in which Cena had effectively laid out a 6-man tag match involving Riley, whose role he micromanaged. Alex followed those instructions to the letter, and yet Cena was still not happy. He referred to Alex as numbnuts as he reprimanded him backstage. Riley just vanished from WWE without much fanfare eventually. There's every chance all this is true. Who knows? Number 5, Baron Corbin. The rumors back in 2017 went like this. WWE wanted to push Baron Corbin, give him the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then soured on him when he began bickering with WWE medical director Joseph Maroon over the seriousness of concussions. On top of that, there were also whispers that Cena had written him off to management. Now, the Wrestling Observer debunked this rumor, but Cena still did away with the man at SummerSlam. Now, obviously, Cena didn't book the finish himself, but their clash was very flat and didn't really allow Corbin to show what he could do in any sense. It was so forgettable, I had to look it up before doing this video as I couldn't even picture it in my head. It was a weird move because it pulled the rug out from under Corbin, even though there was this idea that WWE wanted fans to take him seriously as a championship contender. So explain that one. Didn't help anyone involved. Number 4, Braun Strowman. On the September 11, 2017 Raw, John Cena faced Braun Strowman in a pay-per-view match that was just thrown on TV. Nope, I don't know either. That's just the world we live in nowadays. So let's do some comparing. Roman Reigns, long considered the second coming of Cena, had an awesome feud with the Monster Among Men in the months prior, often stealing the show when they clashed. Dynamic, hard-hitting, and fought as if they wanted to kill each other, those matches raised the profile of both men. Roman especially made sure to never stop moving to keep the realism up. The only way he could beat Strowman was to stay on him. Cena, on the other hand, well, this was far more by the numbers. He did sell for Strowman in the early going in the most exaggerated way possible, but that didn't matter at all when John fired up out of nowhere even after taking an inordinate amount of punishment. This was Hogan levels of revival prowess. Because of all this, Braun didn't really get much out of it, and Cena is still Cena. Could hit him with a truck and it's not going to make any difference. Strowman did lay out John afterwards by power slamming him onto the steel steps. There wasn't much payoff for all of this. Kinda just ended. That was that. Number 3, Damien Sandow. The fall of Damien Sandow was quick and sudden, but man, was it hard to see. Many factors contributed to it, but after he was selected to win the Money in the Bank briefcase in 2013, the old curse of, well, he's got the briefcase now so he can lose a lot, came into play. Hilariously, or so the story goes, it was this that dented Sandow's aura and his perception to Vince McMahon, even though he booked the damn thing. I mean, why on earth did he pick this loser as a potential world champion, he must have pondered. And that really is mind-blowing. There was also what happened on the October 28, 2013 entry of Raw, however. After John Cena told us that he was far from 100% following an elbow injury that had shelved him, Sandow, smelling blood, cashed in. It was a wise move, especially as Cena had re-injured that elbow with a sickening steel chair shot. Usually this sort of angle results in a 2-minute match, but here, Cena fought through the pain barrier and dispatched Sandow in just over 13 minutes. Damien couldn't even beat a one-armed man in a punching contest. It was difficult to take him seriously as a genius when he failed to follow through on the most basic of all wrestling strategies. Also, he was only the second guy to attempt to cash in and fail, Cena himself being the first, which didn't help any of this either. Number 2, Ted DiBiase Jr. On the February 8, 2010 Raw, Ted DiBiase Jr. stood in John Cena's way, which was bad because, as Jerry Lawler put it, Cena was in a foul mood. Batista had tried to end Cena's career during a previous brutal attack, so in response, Cena killed off DiBiase's career. That's not really how retribution works, but never mind. John rushed to the ring and flattened DiBiase with a lariat before unleashing a volley of fists on his face and sending him hurtling from the ring. Cena then threw the man into the barricade as DiBiase sold like he'd been killed. Foam even came out of his mouth as Cena refused to release an STF. Given there was no real feud and that DiBiase wasn't just some geek and had an upcoming match with Randy Orton on the cards, and this just seemed to screw him over, and no one knew why. Anyone could have filled this role, and yet we fed young Ted to the lions instead. As we can see now, it didn't help at all. Number 1, Wade Barrett. John Cena explicitly refused to put Wade Barrett over, or so it is said. Irrespective of the fact that John Cena made the call, he wanted to send the fans home happy from SummerSlam, Cena was encouraged by Edge and Jericho to use his power to change the plan, and he defeated the White Hot Nexus faction with the utmost of ease. It wasn't as if Michael Tarver was ever going to carve up the main event scene, but we never did find out now, did we? During the closing stretch of the match, Barrett and Justin Gabriel, possessing the numbers advantage, laid waste to Cena. Wade peeled back the protective matting and delivered a brutal skull-first DDT to the concrete before tagging in Gabriel. He ascended the ropes before missing his 450 splash, which allowed Cena to recover in about 60 seconds. Barrett then got caught in the STF and he tapped out. In short, Cena had recovered to beat 2 men in just 1 minute 38. This was nonsense.
I miss Roman Reigns. If you're watching this after the fact, the big dog is currently on hiatus as the global pandemic sweeps through the world. And despite the controversy he sometimes musters up, I would like him back on my TV screen sooner rather than later. That planned Bray Wyatt feud seems like nothing more than a dream. Curious case all round, Reigns wasn't the first person to get this polarizing reaction from the fans, as it was almost a direct follow-on from John Cena. The man who can't be seen is often cited as a dude that started such a fallout, but that's not true either. It was certainly louder with Cena and kinda entertaining here and there, but this has been going on for years. If you try and shove a wrestler down fans' throats, they do not like it at all. It's like trying to give a kid medicine. I'm Simon from WhatCulture. This is 10 WWE Mega Pushes fans hated before Roman Reigns and John Cena. Number 10, The Rock.
This was weird at the time, but now, man, it is just unreal. The biggest celebrity in the world, and at one point wrestling fans thought he was a big pile of trash. But if we go back to late 1996, wrestling audiences were changing and they wanted a different presentation from their characters. It's what allowed Hulk Hogan to lead the NWO, Stone Cold Steve Austin to prep himself to become the biggest star ever, and even Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were going through somewhat of an evolution. That's why when Rocky Maivia was sent down the aisle and just told to be super happy and smiley, the crowd threw up on him. It was the exact opposite of what they wanted and what others were hinting at doing, so it was a disaster straight away. It got well out of control as the audience started to chant "Die, Rocky, die," and it was all of this that made WWE stop their monster push they had planned, and they turned Maivia heel instead. It's here where he became The Rock, even addressed such jibes, and somewhat ironically, got so over that management were able to go back to turning him into a megastar. If you want it put more poetically, basically Rocky Maivia had to die in order for the Great One to live. Number 9, Mark Henry. This was the same for Rocky's Nation of Domination friend, Mark Henry. At the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games, the buzz behind the soon-to-be world's strongest man was massive. He was featured on talk shows and was often found in news columns around America, which is why it was even more devastating when he suffered a back injury before the event and couldn't perform as intended. All of this had alerted one Vince McMahon, though, who swooped in and signed Henry to a 10-year deal. This was serious business. You don't just do that without huge hopes either, and it was widely thought Mark was going to get pushed to the moon. Forgetting that we had evolved, McMahon went right back to the Lex Luger playbook and tried to get fans to believe that Henry was Mr. America, but surprise, surprise, nobody was interested in that in the mid-90s. They wanted something with fire. What he was being asked to do didn't help either. A lackluster feud with Jerry Lawler failed to grab attention, and when Mark broke his leg a few weeks later, it all seemed to be going very badly. While it wasn't perfect, when he did return a year later as part of the Nation, it felt like a far better idea than sticking stars and stripes on his gear. As we know, Henry smashed it eventually too when he started inducting assholes into the Hall of Pain, but really his career was quite the ride. Number 8, Vladimir Kozlov. Vladimir Kozlov had one role in WWE: get built up to seem like a credible challenger to the likes of Undertaker and Triple H, and then lose. Even though the powers that be wanted you to believe he could become world champion, we all knew that was nonsense. He was just there to look scary and do nothing. It all started in 2008 following WrestleMania, where Kozlov did start squashing Poindexters left and right. It was all designed to get him a match at the Survivor Series against the Game, and if you haven't seen this, well, don't. It's not what I'd call fun. WWE seemed to know this too, as they attempted to sneak Jeff Hardy into the mix, but when he was hit by a world of personal problems, it was back to the drawing board. The eventual answer was for Edge to be thrown into the thing halfway through, but even then, it's just so slow. Everyone realized that fans weren't buying into Vladimir as a threat, and after he lost to Shawn Michaels in a match to see who would face Taker at Mania 25, he was put into comedy skits, and then he vanished. Cool. Number 7, Bobby Lashley. If WWE had just taken their time with Bobby Lashley, the plan would have worked. There are stories of those below Vince McMahon hiding Bob from the boss because they knew as soon as he saw him, that would be it. Lashley would be called up to the main roster well too soon, fans would see through it, and our golden goose would be cooked. And it's exactly what happened. Making his first big splash when he walked away from the Elimination Chamber in 2006 as the WWE ECW champion, this decision also pissed off Paul Heyman, who had vouched for CM Punk in that match. It left a bad stench around the whole thing, and while Bobby would have a role in the Battle of the Billionaires at WrestleMania, he was still playing second fiddle. It didn't help him come across as the man. He would leave the company before long, before returning a few years ago. And aside from his current run with MVP, I still don't think WWE understands how to use him properly. Look at the man, stop putting him in romance angles, and just have him kick ass. Thank you. Number 6, Vince McMahon. People are still mad to this day that Vince McMahon took WCW and ECW after he purchased them and basically treated them as one. That was the total opposite of what Paul Heyman's brand was all about, but if you want to know when Vinnie Mac had it shot in the head, just go and watch December to Dismember 2006. That is not good, it's the opposite. Bad. There was one final kick in 2007 too, when the boss decided he should become the ECW champion, so he did. Obtaining it from Bobby Lashley after help from Son Shane and Umaga, McMahon also decided to wear a do-rag around his head for some reason, and it was just nuts. I suppose it was a good way to cover up his new bald head after it was shaved at WrestleMania, but I have been hairless for a good few years now, and my do-rag wearing days so far have totaled 0. The main problem was really there was no end to this that made people feel happy.
A Stone Cold Stunner wasn't waiting like it had in 1998 or a swift kick to the balls from Linda McMahon in 2001. It was just crapping all over that title and Lashley just because he could. It is his company after all. Number 5, Triple H. You all know what this is. From the years 2002 to 2005, Triple H was the man, and a lot of people didn't like it. Today, some seem more open to the era, but whatever, it's a discussion point that will last forever. What is fair to say is that the constant winning the game had during this period was a little bit tone deaf. There were plenty of times fans wanted to have the other guy have their hand raised, but he never did. It was the case of diminishing returns by the end of it, as you just knew Triple H was going to hold on to his title regardless, and that took away the fun of trying to figure out what was going to happen next. This came to an end when Batista and Hunter had a brilliant feud in 2005, where Big Dave did win his first world championship, but it's quite easy to see the crowd not investing as much as WWE would have wanted. Disconnected would be the word. Number 4, Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn was always on the single-star list for WWE. He was a giant of a man for one, but even when he was part of the New Age Outlaws, you could just tell. For example, how many times did Jim Ross call him the best pure athlete in the company? It was at least 4,580. Still don't know what that means, but every time someone needed to get a hot tag and run wild, Billy was the guy. He rarely took a beating. This all started properly in 1999, but it just didn't work. Much like other members of DX, the audience just preferred them as a group, and by the time The Rock had eaten Gunn alive during a promo off, the writing was on the wall. This wasn't going to go as planned. It was all over before it really began with Mr. Ass finding his way back to his old friends, and this story certainly wasn't unique to him. Number 3, X-Pac. And that's because it happened to X-Pac too. Needlessly tainted with the X-Pac heat tag, which meant any time he was on screen's audience would just turn off their TV, as opposed to hate the man, he was mostly a victim of circumstance. No one was a better wrestler than Sean Waltman, but as the Attitude Era took off and stories took center stage, no one ever really gave him a good narrative. Instead, he was the guy that served as the litmus test for newcomers, and that sums it up. His in-ring prowess was so good, everyone in the back knew that if you couldn't have a good match with the 1-2-3 Kid, you couldn't have a good match. It's ridiculous that fans came up with this stupid notion, but it did stop any hope of a proper push. X-Pac can still go now if you ever see him on the indies. He deserves more respect. Number 2, the Mega Maniacs. Having the most 80s name ever, even though they came around in the 90s, the team of Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake had their major angle at WrestleMania 9. This was the return of the Immortal One and everything was built around him, but nobody wanted to see these two put together. The real fallout, though, was as the Barber was trying to get back to the ring. After suffering a near-fatal parasailing accident and a divorce, which understandably ruined his physical and mental health, fans in the Manhattan Center decided to chant, "Kill yourself" at Brutus because they didn't like him. I shouldn't have to tell you, but that is not cool. Hulk did himself no favors by also politicking his way to the title in Las Vegas seconds after Bret Hart had lost to Yokozuna, and it wasn't that surprising the team was split up and that Hogan was gone again in a few months. Nobody wanted it. Number 1, Lex Luger. Back to 1993, go and watch any segment with Lex Luger and you will see what I mean. Following the departure of Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon needed a new hero, and he saw that in Lex. Rather than try and let him carve his own path though, McMahon just turned him into Hulk Hogan 2, and every single person saw through it almost instantly. Not even a grand bus tour with Luger waving from the top of it could help, and the same was true for his big slam on Yokozuna. WWE continued on with all of this even though there was barely a peep from the fans, and it was quite clear they were more interested in other guys, namely Bret Hart. It meant by 1994 Vinnie Mac had no choice but to change all his plans, and the WWE title never made its way around the waist of Mr. Luger. Instead, the Hitman stepped in, and before long the former narcissist was out the door. The good news? At least it means that sometimes fans are actually listened to.